Which can you control more, labor or pricing?
Yeah, pricing every day.
Pricing. You're in control of pricing.
The market will either bear it or it won't. And if it doesn't, go find the people that it will bear because they're out there.
Yeah,
100% they're out there.
And if you think about which one hurts your culture or your people more, it definitely is the one where you're spending time figuring out how to make them more efficient and how to make them more productive. Because that makes them feel not productive. It makes them feel bad. They don't feel good about it. Just make the increases based off what the finances tell you. Any CPA, any accountant you hire will tell you what needs to happen. They're not shy about it usually. And you instantly go into defensive mode of protecting why it can't happen. Stop doing that. Stop doing it. Go into mode of making it happen. Do it quickly, and then spend time on sales and working with customers and just focus on the work and being good at what you do. Quit mousing around with the stuff that's the facts, the obvious stuff that has to happen.
Yep.
Hello and welcome back to Season 2 of The Growth Engine with Ryan and Trice. We are talking to agency owners, marketing leaders, CMOs, and talking about growth through their departments and through their agencies and all kinds of topics that you just can't get anywhere else. And we're as real as we can with it. And we love your feedback. But welcome back to Season 2. We are making some changes. We are going to try to limit our topics down to 30 minutes. So drive time, I know. We got to talk less. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
That'll be difficult. We're going to do that. So we're going to be bigger and bolder. We're going to challenge each other more, something we promised to do. And we are going to refer also, agency people. I'm going to refer to them as agency warriors. I have been doing that on LinkedIn and some of my videos. And the reason why I say that is because if you've been in an agency, there are constant things hitting you every day. You're learning every day. You got client issues, internal issues, your own personal issues. When you're in the agency world, I feel like you put on armor every day and you go into battle. And that's why I refer to agency warriors all the time. And so I may refer to agency warriors. I may refer to terms of, building your growth engine, which is, the topic of the book that I'm writing. It is the program that I teach agencies and other businesses also on how to build a growth engine through process and through branding and sales. So just a lot to kind of prepare for, to set up the season, set up the year. We had about 20 episodes last year. I think it went really well. We had a great audience and a lot of interest in the show. So we decided to continue it, didn't we, Trice? We talked about it and we made the choice.
Yeah. I love where we're going with this. We've both, you've owned an agency. You've grown a business. I've worked for multiple agencies. I've been on the client side as a CMO. As the client for agencies, I've hired and fired. So this is a great mix for the two of us because we're two sides of this coin. We talk about it all the time. We're both super focused on growth, obviously, as well. So yeah, again, we're excited for this year because we really thought hard about like what we did last year, the people we talked to, the work that we've done, and where we're at, and where you're going with your business, and what I'm doing, and all those things. So yeah.
And it's kind of like regardless of where we're at, like in our career and what we're doing, there are the topics, the things that we like to talk about, Trice, are these things that are experiences we've had and things we're actually doing every day. And that's why I think they're so relevant, I think, to our audience. I think that they're not overly preachy. They may state a bold opinion at points, but I don't know. I feel like we're keeping it real, and I think that's what today's episode is going to do. I'm going to talk about profitability, and it's something that it sounds boring. We're going to try to make that sound interesting, and I think it will be, because profitability is something that everybody wants to make about spreadsheets, and it can be. You need to do that. You need to break down things, but it's the beginning of the year. Everybody's doing their taxes and everybody's looking at how profitable they were, making their goals for the year. And I find it fascinating how agencies and agency owners and business owners all kind of like think about this stuff. They all think about it differently, each one of them. And I find that at the end of the day, when I'm looking at especially like agency profit, there's really two key things. I mean, and you and I had talked about this right before we got on here. One of the deals, labor. You're a heavy labor-driven business. It's a service business, right? And so, I see agency owners all the time. They spend more time in spreadsheets and labor management software, in project management software, trying to figure out how to track time and do all that piece of it. They spend way more time in that piece than the second thing I think is really the contributor is your pricing slash sales. And they're the same and they're different, but pricing, they'll spend way more time trying to figure out how to lower their costs versus just increasing the pricing to what they know they have to do. They don't want to lose clients.
Yep.
They don't want to have to do it. They don't want to have to communicate that they just did it. That's uncomfortable. And I would say, grow up. You're an agency owner. Put on the big boy pants and do it. Increase your pricing. Quit being a puss about it. I'm sorry. And I told you I was going to be bolder. I get sick of it. I get sick of people saying, I can't raise my pricing right now. I've lost a few customers. If I raise it now, I'll lose the ones I've got. Guess what? You don't have a business then. That business owns you.
Yeah, I'll say two things about that. I mean, there's a lot to go into this, right? So if you're doing package-based selling where you're like, oh, I've got a $5,000 a month package. I've got a $10,000 a month package, whatever those services are bundled together, however, right? You are so afraid to raise that because those are nice roundable numbers and blah, blah, blah. And you're so when you get yourself, and that's not necessarily a bad way to go. It's a great way to go. But the downside, the flip side of it is you're then constantly focused on keeping your costs down so that your $10,000 a month package has a ton of margin built into it. Okay. But that's not thinking, like all the folks that out there that prescribe to the idea of the universe and prosperity and mindset. Right. Well, that's a negative mindset because you're focused on, I have to manage myself, my costs. I gotta keep stuff down so that I can make money. No. It's the opposite. Your value is based on two things as an agency: speed and expertise. And I'm going to say that probably in every episode this year.
You've done it a lot. You said you're really a big believer in that speed and expertise.
I fucking hate when people don't understand. Where does your value come from? As an agency, you're the responsible for being an expert in your thing. And that's why people want to pay you. And your second responsibility is to every client is get it done fast. Okay, well, the three legs of every stool are, price, speed, and quality. Well, good and fast are never cheap. So why are you killing yourself over whether to be $10,000 a month packages or $12,000 a month packages? Bite the bullet. Forget what the economy has done. Your value is based on those things. So bring value to market, and you'll be fine.
I know what you mean by like overdoing keeping the pricing down. I think it's both. I think there's just a balance, like this balance that has to happen. I just see more people spend the time on doing that piece of it. And if you think about which one hurts your culture or your people more, it definitely is the one where you're spending time figuring out how to make them more efficient and how to make them more productive. Because that makes them feel not productive. It makes them feel bad. They don't feel good about it. They feel like shit because you're sitting here getting into their business, micromanaging labor. And I would tell you, set some standards, set some KPIs, set some standards, try to manage by that. But at the end of the day, which can you control? This is a great question. I thought about this morning preparing for this topic. Which can you control more, labor or pricing?
Yeah, pricing every day.
Pricing. You're in control of pricing.
It's your price. It's yours. Decided. Yeah.
Yeah. So I run into people still. This is crazy. I freelanced a long time ago. This is like before I worked for the Kansas City Star, before I got into direct market. I freelanced graphic design. Back then, I was at $25 to $35 an hour.
Mm.
I am still seeing people in the $35 to $50 an hour range. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And so I will tell you that in most cases when I work with somebody, and maybe I've mentioned this before in a previous episode, if they're anywhere in the ballpark of $75 or lower, I'm usually going in and going, hey, you know what? Try doubling it over the next 3 quotes you do. Just double it.
Yeah.
Just
for like a blended rate?
Just double it. Whatever you're doing, double it and see what happens. And, you know, most of the time what happens on this trice is they come back and they sell at least 2 out of the 3, and sometimes all 3, and they are ecstatic. They are so pumped, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't think that I could do it. They like to say the term like the market won't stand for it. Like the market won't withstand that. You know, you don't understand my market is what they say. Well, my market's different. Bullshit. It's not different. And it comes down to your confidence. And this isn't a problem with demand. That's another misconception. A myth is, oh, the demand's just not there yet. I started my agency, my digital agency, in 2008. There hasn't been 1 month, 1 week, 1 day that demand for digital marketing has not been extremely high. Period. I don't care what I'll argue this when anybody wants to go that direction. Great. So it's not demand. That's not the problem. Labor is a little bit of an issue. You know what the problem was? And this is what I kind of set forth when I started my agency. It was, I promised to deliver real results and be damn good at what I did. And that is the problem out there, is if you're average or worse, and you are out there trying to charge good pricing, you know, you probably shouldn't be in business to begin with. Yeah. Don't set forth to be that. Like, just set forth to be accountable, responsible for producing results, and you can charge whatever the hell you want. If you can produce results, people will pay you right now.
Absolutely, right? There's so many ways for you as an agency to add value to your customers, right? And I won't go into all those. That's a whole nother show.
Right? Yeah, I agree.
But there are a million ways for you to do that. Whatever yours is, or whatever combination of yours is, right? You have to stop second guessing yourself about, is that value worth something to someone? It is. And if it's not the someone right in front of you, that's okay, because it's the someone right behind them. And I'll give you a great example. I had an agency in California, of all places, where labor costs are astronomical, right? And my blended rate, and for those of you who don't use one, I'm not going to advocate for it, but just as a measurable, right? My blended rate for this agency, which was full of digital technical people, developers, SEO, the whole thing, was $125 an hour. And this is 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, done. I will sign here, because I knew, one, bare minimum, they should be charging me $150. It's $25 an hour more. And two, there was no way they were managing their costs in California and without maybe contractors that were overseas or something like that. And which I was like, that's not my problem. I'm going to judge you based on what value you bring to me. My measurables are going to be about what you do. How you do it is your business. But at 125, I know I'm saving money as CMO. So I was like, this is a no-brainer. But there's a great example of an agency who brings technical expertise to me, is responsible for having a strong opinion about why you do things a certain way, why you use, WordPress over Drupal or whatever that, maybe the web platform might be, whatever, right? They're responsible for having a strong opinion. And my job is to decide if I align with that and believe in them, and if they can do the work for me. And then can I afford them? That's the only decision I have. So whether I choose them or not isn't based on the price. It's their alignment with my goals and their ability to deliver on technology I also believe in, or that they can convince me I should believe in. Not about the money. I felt like, either way I was going to pay a premium, because that's what you do. You pay an agency premium compared to like having it in-house, but also they're going to bring expertise that I don't have. That's why I want them.
And speed. There you go.
Speed, right, exactly. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to hold them accountable to certain things. So it blew my mind that I was getting the rate I was getting. And sure, I had question marks about like, well, okay, does that mean they don't have the skill? And it's like, oh, I'm going to get all junior people, or they're not going to be as fast as I want them to be, whatever. Those are my measurables to hold them accountable to. It's not. So they made a poor decision not coming to market with something more right from the get-go. And I think agency owners that you talk to all the time that are out there in the market that are debating about this topic, look at your rates and figure out what your margin needs to be. Make some hard decisions, and whether you're doing that, you billing people hourly, whole project packages, whatever, or you've just got a blended rate across your team. However you're doing it, and there are a lot of different ways. We can talk about those another time. The point here is, if the market will either bear it or it won't, and if it doesn't, go find the people that it will bear, because they're out there.
Yeah.
100% they're out there.
Yeah. Anytime somebody is charging under $100 right now, freelance, agency, anything, under $100, my ears perk up and I'm like, I need to look at why. Like, sometimes there can be a why, but it's just, I don't see, the reason why I don't see or hear profit in that, okay, is because I've seen the increases and everything else around us. Yeah. And I know what pricing was 5-10 years ago. And so if I take into consideration all the things that have increased around us and what percentages they've increased at, like, okay, that should put people's rates at 125 minimum and upwards to 200 to 225, 250. Yeah. And I know that sounds really, some of the people listening to the show is going to be like, what? You're out of your mind, man. You slow down. You don't know what you're talking about. I have walked into agencies already charging that much. And we've gone over that. Now, in some cases, they're overly profitable. In that case, when they're like, I say that's my judgment. Like, they're profitable. Who am I to really say, I guess? But in that case, like, sometimes the labor is just running amok, and that's why. And they're taking their sweet time. They're paying for hours of labor they can't see because they're a virtual agency. And like, sometimes there's inefficiencies that aren't quite right, and the clients are being a little bit overcharged. That's a very rare case, by the way. It's not a unicorn, but it's a rare case that those things are happening. Most of the time, it's the complete opposite, where they are lower. So when we're talking about profit, you brought something up, to mind. It's the end of the year. If you see, let's use simple math, because that's what I do when I coach people, because I want to get to the fixing. I don't want to spend time finding the metrics. I want to get to the fixing, right? So let's say you have 10% profit at the end of the year on the bottom line, whether you took it and dispersed the rest of it in disbursements, or you spent something additional on the agency or your business, whatever. Let's say you ended up at 10%. That's not healthy at all, right? That's not healthy. You want to be today, you want to be in the 20 plus range. 15% is not good these days. It used to be okay. You want to be in the 20 plus range. And so if you're at 10%, I can spend a lot of time trying to solve why the inefficiencies, the labor issues, but what we just talked about, I'm not in control of the labor, really. And there's things we can change and we can get better, but it's not going to catch up that much. If it does, there'll be a lot of pain. The team will feel the pain of the changes that you make, and it won't be perceived as a great idea. Almost always increase your pricing 10% to get to the 20. It's a simple figure. Just do that. Increase it. Now you're making 20%. It's simple math. I know people argue, well, that it won't exactly be right, Ryan. It'll be a little bit less or a little bit more. I don't care. Argue that out yourself.
Yeah.
Make the change. Adjust from there. That will give you the time and the space and the money to then figure out some of these other pieces that are micro that can affect and make you a good operating agency or have a healthy growth engine.
I would say two things. One, like, first, everything you said about charging, is true. My sister is in PR and she hires a lot of content developers and things like that. And I don't necessarily do a ton of that. So we were actually just having this exact conversation, like, how much do people cost? I don't have great context for people like I used to. Technical digital SEO people, sure, but content driven, not as much. So I'm relying on her expertise there to help me understand what do people really cost, you know? But to your point, in my opinion, if you want to fire the growth engine, what is the one thing when you go to your team and you posted something about your team or CEOs and agency owners really knowing what their team is thinking?
Yeah.
And you're 100% right. They don't. But you go to your team and you ask them what they need to be more successful. What's the one thing they're going to say? More people. They all feel like they're doing the work of 1.5 or 2 people, whether they really are or not. That's a debatable topic. But the point I'm going to make here is the first thing you do is you raise your prices by 10%, which gives you more profitability. The second thing you do is you, after closing some of those deals, reinvest in your business and get more people, which gives you some bandwidth, gives you some flexibility, some movement, so you're not quite so tight with the workforce, the labor force. You start to get maybe the better results out of people because you're not grinding them quite as much. But either way, you may still end up at 15% margin, but your top line has grown, and you've reinvested in your business, which means your scale has changed, which means now you have more capacity. So you do that for 2 or 3 years, and all of a sudden your growth engine is moving. It's not stale. It is not stagnant. You are not constantly trying to win business just to maintain. You are growing. Your revenue is growing, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, over the last 3 years, I've hired 10% more people. My hourly charges and things are higher now as well. All of a sudden, my 15% starts to incrementally grow on its own because top line revenue has grown and I have more bandwidth of people. And so I can take that top line, I can grow my thing. That is literally what we call the growth engine. That's its mechanism. Boom. It's cycling now. That and now it has a life of its own, man. And you as an agency, if you can get there, man, your world will change. It'll completely be different.
Yeah. Talking about the internal mechanisms of the agency like that, it made me think of like going back to the agency warrior, right? And I got this vision in my head, he's got the armor on, he's got the spear, standing on a mountaintop with a solar behind him. But
attacking the next windmill. Don Quixote style. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the agency owner when I picture him going into battle in this scenario, he goes, his teams are saying, we need more people. Yeah. By the way, they'll always say that. Always. So there is a right amount, there is a right balance, and I'll leave everybody to like figure that part out or work with an expert to get that labor piece figured out. But there's a right amount. They'll say that, they always do. They'll always complain about not having enough details, enough things to do their work or job, right? And so they want more people. Well, then you have to get more clients. Well, do you have to get more clients? Well, down the road, the vision looks like you have the same amount of clients or the right amount of clients, and the pricing is correct. If the pricing is correct, that solves that issue, right? And so it's not about the volume of clients, but I'm a big believer in constantly getting clients and bringing clients in. I'm a growth oriented, go rake it in daily, get it in, because that's how you grow. But then on the sales team side, we can't increase pricing. Like we're already too high.
Yeah.
I don't even know where they get this sometimes, because a lot of times they're not even really battling price with prospects. They're battling other things, and it's not about price. The agency owner is actually the worst one in this category because they have had to be the primary salesperson, and they started selling when they started the agency. So they started a lot of times as a freelancer.
Yeah.
And so they are thinking about the days they were charging 35, 45, 50, 60. It went up to 75, and they're like, wow, we're really charging a lot now. And then, when it approached the 100, they really battled with it mentally. Now we're in the 125 to 150 to, 200 an hour range they're shaking their head every day going, I just don't know how. And that battle, a lot of times that agency owner has, that warrior part of, is battling themselves. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
spend less energy battling
Yep.
and dealing with this. Just make the increases based off what the finances tell you. Any CPA, any accountant you hire will tell you what needs to happen. They're not shy about it usually. And you instantly go into defensive mode of protecting why it can't happen. Stop doing that. Stop doing it. Go into mode of making it happen. Do it quickly, and then spend time on sales and working with customers and just focus on the work and being good at what you do. Quit mousing around with the stuff that's the facts, the obvious stuff that has to happen.
Yep. If agency owners think about their own time and the time of the potentially strategic leaders that they have across departments, if they're that size, right? Every one of those people brings expertise that the client does not have. The agency owner, as the most experienced person, most likely across all of these things, brings the most strategic value to the client, right? While the client is 100% paying you to do something tangible that's below that strategic thing, you have to get there. And if the honest truth, I wouldn't charge $150 an hour for anybody of strategic value ever. I would never go that low, because they're all worth more than that, and you probably pay them a premium. And if you put your margin into things and cost of doing business in on top of that, it's probably at 150 without even trying. And so, there's somebody I would bill at 200, 225, 250 easily. Yourself, as an owner, you're a 250 an hour kind of person. If you were going to consult straight out by yourself, and Ryan and I've talked about this before, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Why would you charge less than 250 an hour? You are bringing a very specific set of expertise to the client. They cannot get it anywhere else. If they can, that person's charging 250 an hour. So don't hesitate. So I guess I would say it like that is, the more strategic these projects are, the more branding, if you're on the marketing side, or strategic decisions on digital about why you do the things you do, research, keyword research, whatever, right? Like, those are premium skill sets. This isn't just go to Google and let Google tell you the answer, which is what somebody at the entry level is going to do. But it's you as a business person and the owner of the company or the client making strategic decisions about what keywords are important to their business, because you understand their business better than your frontline person who's doing the work. So that's the translation. So you got to build all that stuff in, and don't be shy about it, because that client can't get there on their own, and your frontline person who's doing the work can't get there on their own either, because they don't understand the client's business the same way. So it's your responsibility to be the conduit between those two groups, and to be the strategic person who makes hard recommendations and sets direction, because you're the expert. And that's what they pay you to do. There's no shyness here. And there's no bragging either. This is not humble brag. This is the truth. That's why they're paying you to come to market with something, because you have expertise that they need, and they've got to pay for it. And your piece of the total package may be only 10%, and that's okay. But you're a subset of the total, because your expertise is different than your frontline team. So if you're at 250 and your frontline team's at 75 or 100, okay, your blended rate is what? 175? Okay, done. Or you bill them separately? Cool, done. Or the package is built as a package and you've already figured out what all those costs are? Cool, done. Either way, it's a great assessment.
What I like about using the profit percentage thing is it kind of like throws out the whole pricing strategy thing, throws it out the door as far as the conversation goes. I don't care how you do it. At the end of the day, when you measure that profit, that tells you everything. It tells you that you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong, or something needs to change. Going back to my example of increasing pricing 10%. if it did truly increase additional 10% to your bottom line, let's say that your cash flow, and I work with cash flows when I sell agencies, right? Let's say that your cash flow is 200,000. That's low, 200,000, but simple math. And you increased it, your pricing 10%. And the end of the next year, it shows 400,000. Well, if you're using a multiplier of say 4, do the math on that thing, right? Like you're at 800,000, right? Or you are at 1.6 million in what you can sell your company for. It's not just about valuing yourself and your team, and that is a big part of what this does, but it adds profit and it adds value to your agency in a way that you didn't think of. Everybody wants to talk about multipliers when they go to sell their business. Guess what? The biggest multiplier you can do is you. You can do this. You can do it. In the 1 or 2 years before you sell it, hopefully 2 or more, before you sell it, you make the multiplier happen. And you make your pricing what it needs to be so that it's crazy profitable. I actually just sold a business and in December, and they talked about they were getting ready to do a price increase, but they'll wait for the new buyers to do that price increase. We sold it, and the new buyers instantly did it. And I thought to myself the whole time, why wouldn't they have done that price increase the year before? Why wouldn't they have done that before and then taken home that much more money when they sold it? I mean, they did well, but they could have done a lot better. And so I'm all about building growth engines and building value that does everything right for today, but also right for the agency owner or business owner in the near future or at the time they go to sell the company.
Yeah, I think your timing question there is really, really important. If you are an agency owner and you are looking to grow your business and create a growth engine, the model I described where you're reinvesting in new people is a great model, because you're increasing your top line revenue, you're increasing your dollar margin at the end of the day, because even if you're holding 10%, but your revenue is going up, obviously, right? That's coming to the bottom line. So your business is growing both as a validation, but also skills, expertise, top line revenue, people, all that's growing as well. So, but that's a slow growth method, right? That is I want to build my thing consistently. If you're in, I want to sell my business mode that you just outlined, well, then you're not quite there yet, right? It's better to, like you just said, let's take that same price increase, make sure my team is working efficiently, have the same number of clients, do the same types of work, do the same volume of work, but have a top line growth, top line growth that comes into margin, a significant margin, right? Well, that's a great. Either way, you do both those. You do one of those things for 2-3 years. Just to your point, you do it 2 years or more. You've really confirmed that you can sell this thing this way to the new owner, right? Or you've built a very, very, very tangible growth process that allows you to be the owner of this business and maybe step away and bring somebody in to run it and keep this model for a really, really long time. Either way, these are great models.
Yeah, but I always go like, always be ready to sell. Like, always think about, like, to me, I have agents that are like,
there.
Hey, we'll make it we're going to make it profitable over the next 2 or 3 years. Like, I hear you, and we're going to baby step this, and we're going to incrementally make these changes over the next 2 or 3 years. Bull crap.
Not fast.
No, you make the changes now. You aren't profitable. You won't make it 2 or 3 years. You make the changes you need to make to run a healthy business today. And that scares the hell out of them. You know what?
That's what I don't.
The thing I could tell you is, until you do it, you won't know the joy that it brings you. You won't understand it. And you just got to be bold enough to do what you set out to do, which is to have a business and grow it. And if you weren't going to do it today, you're probably not going to ever do it, to be honest. And you're going to flounder for years. I was thinking about the rising costs, and I've talked a lot about like percents and things like that. The truth is my best agencies that I work with, they're in the 30 to 50% profitability range. That's how high they are. That's where they're at. It's not, the goal isn't 20%. The goal is 30 to 50.
Yeah, I think the way I've seen it, like agencies, pure marketing driven agencies, whatever type, almost all of them are 30 to 50%. Most businesses do not operate that high of a margin. Not even close, right? They're somewhere between 11 and 20. And the more tangible their product is, manufacturing per se, right? The closer they are to 11, and if they're below 11, they're frankly, they're failing.
Oh, most agencies are actually below 5.
Yeah.
They don't, you'll never know it by talking to them. You'll never get the idea that they're that low.
And maybe their goal is like, hey, I don't want to pay any taxes, so I'm just going to reinvest everything into the business. Okay. But there are ways to do that you personally benefit from as the owner without, like, that's a whole other topic, but
it is.
Yeah, like, dude, if that's your point, fine. But you're hurting your opportunity to sell the business if that ends up being your goal.
Right.
Because people are not looking, they want to see margin, and they don't want to see 1 year. They want to see 2 or more, because they want to be, without a shadow of a doubt, to be provable. I can get 30, 35% margin out of this business. Because that's, if you're buying an agency, that is your expectation.
Right. I thought about how we could have turned this into a sales thing. Like, we could have talked a lot about the sell, because a lot of people say, well, I can't sell at that price. Well, that's a sales issue. That's a confidence issue. It's a sales issue. It is its own topic. I knew if we got into selling, like, that would be the world of selling. And I knew, like, look, can we just high level profit? We only got 30 minutes and we blew that one.
I was like, I kept looking at the clock going,
yeah. So
we go.
We're going to punt that one. And I really, hopefully on our next one, I'd like to get into talking about related to profit is your team. When do you use freelancers and contract versus employees? And so I'd like to talk about that on our next episode. But that is all for today. Look how we did that. I just cut it right off, Trace.
I like how you wrapped it up.
Yeah. Sometimes we just got to shut it, man.
I think anybody that's watched or listened to this show already knows that we could talk about things like this for a long time and beat the dead horse, but I'm glad we're not going to. We're gonna shoot for 30 minutes, concise. Listen to them on your drive, on your ride, on your whatever, walk. There you go.
We talked about 10 minutes on how we like our eggs cooked before we started today. So
if that tells people anything, it really did. Yeah.
Yeah, that does. All right, man. Well, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and share. We appreciate you listening, and tune in on our next episode of The Growth Engine. Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers.